Hello, listeners. Hello, David. Hey, David, can I tell you a story, a diatribe, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely, Zane. Go for it.
Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate the floor. All right, so at approximately 12:47 noontime on Sunday, I made a decision. I made the decision that I was going to drive to Pittsburgh and watch a certain Steelers team play a certain Buffalo Bills team in what was possibly the opportunity for them to once again overtake the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC North. Because our friendly Baltimore Ravens lost on Thanksgiving to the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think you could probably agree with me that that was very happy. That was a good thing that we both enjoyed. And so I said, okay, I found a $90 ticket to the upper deck, the first row of the upper deck on the other side of the stadium, and I said, I'm going to enjoy a nice Steelers game with pretty much no regrets. I said, okay, if they lose this one, it's okay, because, we weren't expected to win this one, but hey, I at least get to go to a Steelers game, something that I did not think I was going to get to do this season. So, I'm at the game, and it's freezing. The wind chill is about 20 degrees, probably less even with the wind, which had about 30-mile-an-hour gusts. And again, I'm up in the top deck, so it's pretty cold up there. I was all bundled up. I had a scarf. I had my beanie on, my Steelers jersey, my Steelers sweatshirt on underneath. I was all bundled up, and I forgot that I was cold until the second half started. Aaron Rodgers gets strip sacked for a touchdown, and from then on, I was upset. So upset, in fact, that when Josh Allen was just about to score his record-breaking rushing touchdown, I walked to the rotunda and said, I'm not going to watch the rest of this game. And I left with 8 minutes left in the game, and I think that's the first time I've ever left a sporting event early in my entire life. Does that sound like I'm very happy with what went on in person, live, from my perspective at said Steelers game this last Sunday, David?
No, I don't think it was. And I think that there was a lot of other people there live who, through their, voices, made that same feeling heard.
David, this game was so historic that I wrote down several things that happened in this game, and I was there in attendance for this game. Can I read some of these records / historic happenings that happened in this game, David?
Absolutely, please.
The most rushing yards by an opponent in Heinz Field history. Heinz Field opened the year that I was born, in 2001. In that time, this is the most rushing yards that an opponent has ever had in that field's history. But wait, there's more. It's the most rushing yards by an opponent in Pittsburgh, not just Heinz Field, but in Pittsburgh, since my dad turned 1 year old. 50 years ago, the Bills, ironically, had 310 rushing yards, and O.J. Simpson led the way. It's the most rushing yards that an opponent has had against the Steelers since my dad turned 1 year old. But wait, there's more. Josh Allen is now the leader amongst quarterbacks for the most rushing touchdowns in NFL history, passing Cam Newton. I was there, David. And on the lines of that 50-year anniversary of the most rushing yards by the Bills, it was also the 50th anniversary of the terrible towel. Lynn Swann came out and got the crowd pumped up before the game. He wasn't even wearing any long sleeves. He just came out in his Steelers jersey, completely sleeveless, and was going crazy on the 50th anniversary of Myron Cope's terrible towel. But one last thing, David, and then I'll finally give the floor to you, as you've been so patient with me. It is the first time in recorded history that Renegade was booed at a Steelers game. I was there, David. I was there. And I joined in all of it.
Well, I loved all of that. And I'm glad that you were able to dive so deep into all those things, because this was one of the worst team performances, I think, ever maybe ever, since Chuck Noll became a coach in the Pittsburgh Steelers. This might be the worst performance I think I've ever seen from a Pittsburgh Steelers team. Live with my own eyes, this is the worst performance I've ever seen. It's funny. I think we foreshadowed this Renegade thing. I think we mentioned earlier on in the season, we were both like, when's the last time we've gotten a stop after Renegade? That was literally foreshadowing to this moment of it getting booed. And I mean, if that's just not the most like heart-wrenching, like heartbreaking thing, if I was a defensive player on the Steelers hearing the Renegade get booed, I'd want to leave the stadium. That's just embarrassing. That shows you how poor the quality of play was. And we're Pittsburgh's diehard fans. We go all across the country, and we're booing you, and we're chanting "Fire Tomlin." I mean, on one hand, it's like finally, people are seeing what, my dad's seen since, like, I don't know, Tomlin first stepped in the Pittsburgh Steelers office, but I've been noticing since 2018 or 2019. It's like, thank you. People have woken up to this nightmare that we've been living in for specifically the past 8 years. And I feel like this was just a culmination and feels like a breaking point. Granted, Mike Tomlin's probably going to pull one out of the hat and we're going to win this week, but this feels like a breaking point where there was absolutely no silver lining. We had said this before, but it felt like we had hit our rock bottom a few times. It feels like the Steelers dug up the concrete, dug 30 feet deeper, and was like, no. That's not the rock bottom. Hold my beer. Let me show you what rock bottom is. And that was this week against the Bills.
It most definitely was. And it's funny, too, because the contrast is the fact that they were winning at halftime. Sure, it didn't look pretty at all, but they had 2 takeaways in the first half. Brandon Echols had an interception, and then they had the other they kept stopping the Bills. Like, even though they were moving the ball, they kept stopping the Bills, and it's like, okay, we're up 7-3 at halftime, and we get the ball coming out of half. We've stopped Josh Allen. We've not really stopped James Cook, but we've stopped the Bills' offense enough to where we held them to just the field goal in the first half. So I'm sitting there up in section 521 thinking, okay, we're in this game. Sure, it's like extremely ugly, but if you had to tell me this a week ago today, like that the Steelers were going to be up at halftime, I would have been like, hey, that's awesome. Let's take that. Like, that's great. And then from the moment that the second half started, you just knew that it was all coming off the tracks. They come out with this jumbo package, and instead of running the ball like you probably should, Aaron Rodgers drops back to pass. He gets skittish into pocket. Joey Bosa comes in, knocks the ball out, scoop and score, touchdown, and immediately the Bills take the lead. And you kind of knew in the moment right there that they were never coming back from that. And sure enough, that was exactly what happened. There was no continuity to the offense, and everything from there was just an absolute train wreck.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And our offense did absolutely nothing. The only points came off of a turnover. And like those 2 turnovers, I don't even think we deserve much of the credit because the first one seemed like a bit of an errant pass from Josh Allen, not the most accurate. Granted, I like Brandon Echols and he made a good play. But the second one was just James Cook not holding the ball correctly. Like, we did nothing to earn that. And that was our touchdown. So it was an unearned 7 points. We earned 0 points in this game. And yeah, when that score happened that the Bills got because of Joey Bosa, I was like, there it is. There's the neutralizing factor. It's over. I thought it was over. And I think that this is the biggest case. I hadn't said it yet. We've always said there's been struggles with defense, specifically this year, but just, kind of like last year, the way it kind of fell off there at the end. I think that the steel curtain has died under Mike Tomlin. I think that he's killed the steel curtain because not only does he have first place in most rushing yards at Heinz Field, he also owns second and third place. All 3 belong in the Mike Tomlin regime. And under his control has this defense absolutely gotten worse and worse and worse. And we talked about it a little bit last week, even though we won no, we lost. But,
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago we won.
2 weeks ago. We talked about how the defense, how it's just been such a slow, like it hasn't been like a guy who comes in and only wins you 1 game. It's been such a slow decrease, and we saw it on full display this week. Like, it was pitiful. Like it's not even these big plays anymore. It is just technique. It is just coaching. Our guys are getting manhandled. There's no middle of the D line. Cam Hayward's invisible except when he's running his mouth at Josh Allen, which is embarrassing when you're getting absolutely destroyed. And then TJ Watt, I don't even know. Was he on the field? I don't know. I mean, Tony Romo mentioned about 50 million times that he was getting 4 or 6 hands on him. Doesn't matter. Where's Highsmith? He only got there one time. Didn't even finish the play. No one's doing anything. I think that this is the game that has the most reason to want to lose hope. And, I'm finally seeing more of what you were seeing with Aaron Rodgers. People just aren't open. And we don't have guys talented enough for Aaron Rodgers, honestly. Like, there was a specific throw I'm thinking of that was an amazing throw to Calvin Austin. And Calvin Austin, he's just not big enough to make the play. He just isn't NFL caliber to make that play. And then you got the thing with the Roman Wilson play. We are underclassed at every single level. And not only that, even when we have the best skill player at that position, we're so undercoached that they're doing nothing. And it was just abysmal. It is, I think that on any other team, that is a fireable game. That is a game that you don't ever come out of the tunnel again for that team. But here we are.
Mike Tomlin had his press conference yesterday, and that's the reason why sorry, go ahead, talk. I don't want to take this from you.
You mentioned press conference, and I watched the post game conferences from Tomlin, Rodgers, and Watt. Watt didn't say too much. Rodgers, I think, is still blind that Tomlin's amazing. Tomlin said, they were talking about adjusting this, saying, I mean, I can't even imagine how he gets away with saying this. So obviously one of the worst team performances in years, like horrible. And they asked him what they're going to change. And he said, probably just execution. This thing that we're doing, that we're putting out on the field, we've gotten 6 losses, but we've also gotten 6 wins. So execution probably needs to be adjusted. What the actual heck? Are you kidding me? Are you blind that is good enough? Like, I can't even believe that he said that, and that people are just like, oh, okay, yeah. What, Zane? Explain that to me.
I can't. And I heard that too. And again, it all goes back to what he just leans on that. He's like, we just got to execute better. And it's interesting too, because you remember last year when we lost, I forget what game it was. It might've been after the playoff game when Pat Freiermuth was saying, at some point, we just got to execute better. And then it's like, why is that always what seeps down to the players? Did you notice that Jack Sawyer said the exact same thing this week? He's like, at some point, we just got to execute better. This is impeding on even our rookies. Sure, it's not even like Pat Freiermuth. Okay, he's been here a couple of years, so sure, he's drunk the Kool-Aid and all that stuff. This is Jack Sawyer. He's only been here for a couple of months, and he's already drinking the Kool-Aid. How long is it going to take for people to hear the exact same thing year in and year out for a literal decade and not realize that it's all just a bunch of mumbo jumbo?
Well, and it's funny you mentioned Jack Sawyer, because I do have a comment from him that I want to point out. But I think that we're reaching that point. I honestly do. Because at the post-game press conference, TJ Watt had nothing to say. He had no excuses. He didn't say anything about execution. He just was like, we sucked. We got to do better. Aaron Rodgers, I don't really... he's not a factor, I feel like, in this Steelers drama that we're in, because he's new and, this really isn't his story. This isn't his fight, He just wants to win. Mike Tomlin had zero excuses when people were booing Renegade and chanting "Fire Tomlin," and they asked him about it in the post-game press conference. You know what he said? He said, I'm right there with him. Like, I get it. He had no excuse. And that to me is the biggest red flag. Like, he knows it. He knows that he should be fired. And a few comments that I think that are really, like, eye-opening. Before I get to those, one, you mentioned Jack Sawyer. He talked about, my dad sent me this because, we're Buckeye fans. He talked about learning the NFL playbook compared to a college playbook. And the Pittsburgh rookie edge rusher said that the Steelers playbook is, quote, simple compared to the one that he had at Ohio State. That's embarrassing that the class of college football is somehow better than our defensive class, which is embarrassing because, once again, I've said this the past couple of weeks, we're the steel curtain. We should be the NFL poster for what a defense should be. And yet college defenses are more complex and better than we are. And two other quotes I want to talk about that I think are giving me hope for three actually, for the fuel that's going on to Mike Tomlin. One, Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith called out Mike Tomlin, saying that maybe it is time for a change. Stephen A. Smith was, when you talk about drinking the Kool-Aid, he drank the most of it. He loved Mike Tomlin. That's huge that he's saying that. You sent in a picture, a post about James Harrison, who said he's not a great coach. He was always a good coach. And I think that his definition of that was so on point with what we've always said of how, like, yeah, a good coach or a great coach makes you better than you are. Mike Tomlin has never done that, and we've said that, and that's exactly what James Harrison said he wasn't. And the last quote I'll say, which makes me love Big Ben even more, Big Ben on his podcast said about Mike Tomlin that, hey, the Penn State job's open. Maybe he should look into that. I don't think there's a soul in Pittsburgh that is like, no, like, come on, guys, give Mike Tomlin another chance. I think everybody's done. I think everybody's fed up, and I think everybody's seeing it, and the hope is gone.
I've had people ask me this week about, what's your opinion of Mike Tomlin? And I'm like, well, sure, I was a little bit late to the party, and I appreciate David being the one that got me to the party in general, because I was one of those guys that kind of just was a sheep for the longest time. And I was like, yeah, I mean, he's a good coach and stuff like that. But then I meet David's dad, and I finally get the understanding. The curtain was pulled away, and I finally saw what was behind there. And it's like, no, he's been stripping us of all the potential, all the winning that we have craved for the last decade. And he's done nothing with it. He's done nothing with the opportunity. He's done nothing with the potential. He's gone through offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, talent at every level, some generational talents at different levels, and he's done nothing with it. Did the Killer Bees ever win a Super Bowl? No, they didn't. They never won a Super Bowl. How's that possible? I think about that almost daily right now. How did that team not win a Super Bowl? Sure, their defenses were terrible. We've almost done a full 180. Our offenses used to be what carried us. Big Ben would go out and sling it for 500 yards. Le'Veon Bell would run for 150. Antonio Brown would catch 4 balls for 700 yards in a game. That's not even statistically possible, and yet he would do it. And that team never won a Super Bowl. And I've thought about this too. Think about what the state of the NFL is right now. One of our friends, Logan, is a Bears fan, a diehard Bears fan. You know what the Bears are right now? They're at the top of the NFC. They are the 1 seed in the NFC. Think about another one of our friends, Nathan. He's a Panthers fan. The last time we've heard from the Panthers in their relevant lives was when they went to the Super Bowl. Guess what? That's as long as it's been since the Steelers have won a playoff game. It took the entirety of the Panthers going to the Super Bowl, utterly collapsing, and now they're back. They beat the Rams this week, and they're thinking, okay, we have a shot to make the playoffs. In that entire span, Mike Tomlin has done nothing with talent, done nothing with opportunity, and we've not won a playoff game. And do you really think that this team this year can win a playoff game? We sit at 6-6 right now. The best shot that you had outside of winning the division to get to the playoffs was actually beating the Bills this week. How much bulletin board material do you need? If you win this game, you actually have an avenue into the playoffs that does not include winning the division. And they did this week. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, it's so horrible. And to think that this team could win a playoff game is laughable when you had a team do what I do in Madden and just call 2 plays over and over again, and it work. I mean, fired. Everyone should be fired. How does that happen in the NFL? How do these guys let that happen that you can call 2 plays and you know what, it's going to work every single time? Literally everyone was like, man, like Tony Romo and Jim Nantz were like, man, this is not that fun to broadcast. It's just the same play over and over and over again. And I mean, that is just horrible. Every single thing that you could point out is horrible. And I think that, actually, another quote was Bruce Arians was talking today, and he was like, because Bruce Arians was one of the casualties of Mike Tomlin. And I talked about this in length. I think maybe our first year or second year, kind of all the shadiness that went around him getting kicked out. But he said, I don't know how long ago, somewhat, I think it was after the game, he said, how many times are you going to overturn your offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators until you realize that it's the head that's the problem? And yeah, I was going to point that out too. I'm glad you reminded me. How did the Killer Bees not win a dang Super Bowl when you got a defensive-minded coach? Like, sure, now it's like, his offense isn't that good. You had the Killer Bees. I was just watching a video that was like the best trio in the NFL was Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, and Michael Irvin. I'm sorry, Michael Irvin. Antonio Brown was better than you. I'm sorry, Troy Aikman. Big Ben was better than you. Emmitt Smith, fair. Le'Veon Bell was not as good as you, but he was pretty dang great. How the heck did that trio not win at least one Super Bowl? It's because of the inadequacy of their head coach, letting their defense. I mean, you look at, oh my goodness. I mean, our last playoff game with the Triple Bs, we scored 42 points and we didn't win. I mean, it is embarrassing that trio had, what, 3 playoff wins? And I mean, so a couple years they missed the playoffs. I completely agree with you that it blows my mind that one of the greatest trios in offensive NFL history didn't win. And that happened under Mike Tomlin. And you were talking about the Bears and the Panthers switching things around since we won a playoff game. I'll do you one better. Look at the New England Patriots. Their dynasty, you could say, ended in 2019, but they made the playoffs in 2020. We made the playoffs in 2020. Since our last home playoff game, the Patriots have completely gotten horrible, fired their, dynasty head coach Bill Belichick, completely rebuilt, gotten a new head coach, and are now the top of the AFC since we have won a playoff game, since we've had a home playoff game. I mean, all it takes is a good head coach and a good leadership, right? I mean, it's ridiculous that the New England Patriots, who I thought it would be forever till they will get back on their feet again, are back on their feet before we are. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to see all these teams do this before us. We are setting ourselves back so long. Like, we've set ourselves back years since 2020 because we've refused to get rid of Tomlin and extended his contract. Because the longer we keep him, the further set back we are to actually becoming a playoff caliber team.
It's funny, and maybe this is like way too much TMI, but for whatever reason, I was looking at my college loans today, and I looked and I realized that the interest on one of them is like double what the national average is for student loans. And I'm thinking to myself, first off, why did I sign up for that in the first place? And second off, I'm probably paying more on the interest than I'm actually paying on the original loan. This is exactly what I'm thinking about with Mike Tomlin. It's like, you signed up for this. You saw what the interest rate was. You saw what he's done the last 5 years, retroactive to, say like 2020, 2021 or something like that. You saw what you were signing up for. You had the warning signs. And yet you still signed up for it. And now here we are in 2025, about to be 2026, and you're getting these post-game press conferences where the media is literally looking Tomlin dead in the eye and they're asking him, what are you going to say to the fans who literally are saying in stadium, fire him? And he comes back with that statement that you made. Like, again, Art Rooney. I don't think we can go this episode without mentioning him too. What are you going to do about this? Are you seeing what's going on in your stadium right now? Do you see how the fan base is turning on your head coach, your beloved head coach that has bailed you out, going 9-8 or 10-7 year in and year out to give you that status quo, to give you that baseline of like, oh, we're a winning team. He's never had a losing season. By the way, I think there's a really good shot that I think that Mike Tomlin has a losing season this year. And it might be coming sooner than later. And it might be in the next couple of weeks or so. We'll talk about that. But that's the whole thing is like, hey, Rooney, do you see what's going on? Because are you going to do anything about it? Are you just going to sit on your hands and watch it happen?
Yeah, I mean, are you just like a limp noodle? Like, do you have a bone in your body that your family's team, this is your family's team that was founded? Like, this isn't like some new owner stepping into this thing. This is a legacy that was handed to you, and this is what's happening to your family's team. There's boos, there's fire the head coach. I mean, how are you not thinking I need to change something here? And like you said, where it's like we bought into this. Another statistic I want to throw out there, out of Mike Tomlin's, this is his 19th year, I think, with us. And out of those 19 years, he has had 4 seasons where there has not been a collapse. And my dad, he'll tell me, because I talked to him about this, I asked him when he first noticed Tomlin being iffy. It was the first year that Tomlin was a head coach. We were 9-3. We ended that year 1-3, losing a home game to the Jaguars in the playoffs. And my dad was at that playoff game, and that was the first time he got skeptical of Mike Tomlin. 2008, we win the Super Bowl. 2009, we're 6-2. right? Oh my goodness, we might repeat, lose 5 straight games. You go 5-7, end up 9-7, miss the playoffs. 2010, 2011, 2 great years. 2012, we start 0-4. 2013, we start 0-4. 2014 isn't as bad, but there's a couple game losses in there. 2015, I think there's a 3-game losing streak middle of the year. 2016, there's a 4-game losing streak middle of the year. We almost missed the playoffs. 2018, we're 7-2-1. We go 7-5-1. 7-5-2-1. Yeah, missed the playoffs, even though we beat the Super Bowl champion Patriots that year. 2019, we have multiple losing skids. We all know what happened in 2020. We all know what happened when we went 0-3-1 in 4 weeks in 2021. I could go on. We know what happened in the most recent years. This is a statistic. This isn't an anomaly. This isn't like, oh, the recent years, Mike Tomlin just hasn't been up to stuff. This is who Mike Tomlin is. The exception to the rule is when we don't have that and we go to a Super Bowl or we win a playoff game. The rule is we're going to have a 3-game plus losing skid at some point. And I mean, oh my goodness, we're 2-6 the past, we're 2, or no. Is it 2? Yeah, no, 2-5. All right, fine. We're 2-5 the past 7 games. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, it's just a relief. Like we've been smiling kind of this whole time. I think I'm smiling because people are just finally noticing. And I know I was saying this a little bit last year, but last year I kind of knew that Tomlin wasn't going anywhere. This year, if things don't get better and we do have a losing season, like you said, and I think we're gonna have to, I do think that he might get ran out of town.
I mean, the fact that the national media is finally getting on board, and I want your opinion on this because I've wrestled with this the last couple of days. Did the national media, did they have it at all any skepticism on Tomlin last year? Because I feel like we've had this conversation before, maybe not at the large way that we have like right now, but do you remember any sense last year where the national media was starting to put the fire under Tomlin?
I feel like, and I could be wrong, I feel like if there was something from the national media, it was very minute. Like it was very like, oh well, okay, well they said that, so that could mean this, and that could apply to this, and this could mean that they're gonna get here soon. But I feel like the national media, like last year, were kind of leading up to it, but didn't pull the trigger. And I feel like this year they pulled the trigger. I feel like last year it was time for the fan base to kind of be like, wait a minute, is Tomlin not that good? And I feel like last year the fan base did wake up to that fact because of what happened. And I feel like a lot of Steelers fans who loved Tomlin before last year were finally agreeing with me and my dad and you that, oh wait, maybe he's not that good. And then this year, I feel like it was the national media to finally pull the trigger and be like, listen, it's got to be him. Like, he's got to be. And I think that, thank you, Aaron Rodgers, because I think he's a huge point in this thing that, like, okay, like, Kenny Pickett, understand. Mitch Trubisky, sure. Justin Fields, okay. Russell Wilson, take it or leave it, but Aaron Rodgers, I mean, come on. Come on. Like, you can't have a good offense with Aaron Rodgers. He was having better statistics with the Jets, the New York Jets, than he's having with us right now. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. Like, I think that he's been a huge help, though, to the national media pulling the trigger on Mike Tomlin, which, again, thank you, Aaron Rodgers, to that.
Well, you know who else is probably thinking to themselves, what the heck now, is Adam Thielen. Because, surprise, we just got Adam Thielen off of waivers. And he's retiring after this year. And I saw something today. It's like, poor Adam Thielen. He gets cut by the team that, he had been known for playing with for so long, that he was a legendary wide receiver with. He gets put on waivers, so, there's a system as to who can claim him. And it's like, oh, I want to go out with a bang. I want to be like Odell. I want to go to a team that could possibly win the Super Bowl. Heck, poor Adam Thielen. He has to go to the Steelers for the final 5 games of his career. Like, man, that sucks.
Oh yeah, and I mean it was so funny because during my work day we can take little like brain breaks, and I was just calling a ton of people. No one was answering, a bunch of voicemails, and I was like, I need some like good Steelers highlights to like just watch a couple highlights. So I looked Steelers highlights, and one of the first things was like Adam Thielen highlights, and I was like, huh? I was like, he's not a Steeler, and I look it up, and I'm like, oh great. That's fantastic. I love that. I mean, what the heck are we doing? I mean, that's like, we might as well just go back and invite Robert Woods back on the team. Like, come on. Like, we're embarrassing. We're embarrassing. It's laughable at this point. What we're trying to do, what Mike Tomlin's saying, what other players are saying, it's laughable that they think that they can get away with it. I also want to just mention really quick how Mike Tomlin, I talked about this in other years, kind of more towards George Pickens, how Mike Tomlin has never really been able to control a locker room. We talked about this with what happened with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, George Pickens. I could go on with the people. I mean, now Joey Porter Jr., but this game was so embarrassing because we looked like such fools. And specifically, Walter Payton Man of the Year, Cam Hayward. I don't know what Josh Allen did. I don't know what Josh Allen said, but I know how he played, and he absolutely ran you over and absolutely annihilated you from start to finish. So the fact that you're running your mouth in his face every single play, not stopping talking, doing all that stuff, Patrick Queen hitting him late when you're not supposed to, even though I like big hits, it was late, and he paid for it the very next play getting hurt. It's embarrassing. I was watching, my wife, Kaylee, is a Commanders fan, and like a guy got ejected for, kind of hitting a ref. And like there was a couple other guys got in sportsmanlike conduct for just nasty stuff you never want to see on the sideline. And I'm watching the Steelers and I'm like, oh no, like it's not to that level, but it's pretty dang close. When you're getting crushed, like stop talking, stop running your mouth. Like we had so many penalties just on that kind of stuff alone. And Mike Tomlin mentioned it a little bit, but it just goes to show he's never been able to control that. And it's just embarrassing when stuff like that happens. And I couldn't stand it. It was making me so mad. There were so many things that made me mad this game. But that was one of the biggest things was like, why? Like it's embarrassing, Joey Porter Jr., that you broke up a pass. We're down 23-7 and you're yelling at the guy's face. Like, wake up, dude. You're horrible. We're absolutely getting annihilated. Why are you talking? Like, it's just embarrassing.
I want to point this out too, because I think being in the stadium gave me a little bit of perspective that I probably wouldn't have gotten if I was just watching on TV. But before this game, I was thinking to myself, okay, Buffalo's about a 3-hour drive from Pittsburgh. You know how loyal those Buffalo fans are, and you know how rowdy they are. I'll be honest. I was very impressed with Steeler Nation at home in this game because I truly thought that the disparity of fans was going to be close to 60-40. Again, with the close proximity of Buffalo, with the way that their season's going. I mean, this was a massive game for them. This was a big game for both teams. And it was as much a big game for the Bills as it was the Steelers because, they're kind of fighting for their lives in the playoff seeding right now, too. They've had a little bit of a rough go in recent weeks, and this is kind of a get-right game for them. And sure enough, yeah, they got right. But before the game, the Bills fans were not nearly as rowdy as I thought that they were going to be. And I think that was a product of the fact that there were a lot of Steelers fans there. I would say that, sure, on the Bills sideline, it was probably, a good bit of Bills fans. But I think as far as the disparity in the stadium goes, it was probably close to 75-25, which I thought that was a great ratio, especially coming into this game. Tickets like a week beforehand were close to $200. And like I said, I got mine for $90. So in my mind, when I got it, I was like, oh, a lot of Steelers fans were probably selling their season tickets. That was not the case. This was a Steelers crowd on hand at Heinz Field. And the whole thing, too, is they were loud this entire game. Like, they were into it. They were just waiting for something good to happen. And it's funny because, I'm sitting here, with my scarf over my face, screaming through my scarf. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm yelling a lot. And sure enough, the reason why I'm yelling a lot is because the Bills possessed the ball for 42 minutes in this game. They had the ode to Jackie Robinson. 42 minutes? That is 3/4 of the entire game, essentially. And that's the thing is, like, the Steelers crowd was so into the game that they never lost voice. They never got quieter. And yet the product on the field was never indicative of the support that was around them. And it was just like, it was a funeral. Because by the time that Renegade was played, and by the time that everybody was like done with the game, the only thing that they had left in their lungs was a boo. And that's how it ended. And it went with a whimper. And I thought that people were going to leave a lot earlier than most of them did. I left with 8 minutes left in the game because I knew that they were never coming back. There was still a lot of people in the stands by the time that I left. And I thought that they would have left long before that. Because, I mean, you look at the third quarter, and that was enough reason to leave. But a lot of Steeler Nation stayed, and a lot of Steeler Nation was very loud. And the people on the field and the coaching staff and the ownership group, they did not hold up their end of the bargain. And again, the way that I just describe it is it was fire in the beginning, followed by a funeral at the end, which ended with fire Tomlin chants and booing Renegade. Our solemn, our sacred song. Like, what a moment. What a moment that I like was part of. Like, I still can't even believe that, you know?
Yeah. And I think that like it goes back to I remember like it reminds me of like at the I think it was at the Penguins game that a couple years ago that people were chanting Fire Canada. And I remember we talked about that and I think we both said like, yes, sure, get Canada out of there, but like there's the bigger guy we need to get rid of for this to change. And it's like 2 years later we're here. Like we're here. I think this is the first time Fire Tomlin's ever been chanted anywhere in Pittsburgh. And I mean, yeah, well deserved. It was just like the coach. Like we talked about this against the Bears. The coaching is just horrible. Like my dad sent me a video of how the Bills were able to run the same two plays. Like our D line is getting manhandled. Like they have horrible technique. Our cornerbacks have horrible technique. I'm sure our wide receivers do too. Like it is the like I think about like like I've thought I've always wanted to coach football. Obviously, I'm in a recruiting job right now. I could try and coach high school. It's like in high school, what will I be coaching? Probably just like the fundamentals, the techniques, the things that you kind of need to know to play like football, right? And I'm thinking about that for high school. And I'm looking to my NFL team and they don't have good techniques. The foundational football that you've been learning since freshman year of high school or younger. How is Mike Tomlin just for like is he just like so like in cruise control that like he's been in the league so long that he doesn't want to waste the time with the techniques and then none of his coaches do either. Why do we have horrible technique at almost every level of the game? It's so embarrassing. We're an embarrassing team. Like this is just an embarrassment. Um, it's yeah. I that's all there is to it. It's an embarrassment, and I really do. You go ahead.
I was going to ask you a question. Who was the Browns coach that went 0-16?
Hugh Jackson.
Okay, here's an interesting parallel that I kind of just figured out. And I don't know if there's anything to this, but, perhaps a little bit more foreshadowing as we've kind of had on this podcast several times. Do you remember those final press conferences that he had, when the Browns were like literally terrible, like to the worst possible extent? And in his press conferences, he's smiling. Like can you picture that? Like does that ring a bell with you at all? Like does that make any sense?
I don't remember seeing any of his press conferences during that time. I only remember seeing him on the sidelines, but I'm interested to see where you're going with this.
So, watching the press conference that Tomlin had yesterday, it was just like it was infuriating in a way to see how much he was smiling. Like these questions that are very obviously pointed at him, and he's just taking it with this cheek to cheek smile. And I'm like, maybe this is it. Maybe he's finally, in a weird way, maybe he knows that he's in trouble now. Because again, if Hugh Jackson is like smiling when the Browns are 0-15 or before that, like how do you do that? How's that possible? How do you have a smile at this juncture? How do you, as Mike Tomlin, have a smile when you're 6-6? You probably had the worst loss of your career, a loss that you should never come back from. And now you play the Ravens this coming week, and you got this ear-to-ear smile when these reporters are asking you these very pointed questions.
Yeah, I watched like probably the first like 10 minutes of the questions, and then I turned it off because I got bored, and I felt like like yeah, he's really good at deflecting the questions, and oh yeah, I noticed that too. Like he was laughing, giving some chuckles, and I'm like, this is just interesting. Like seems like there's nothing wrong, and it's just like another normal week. Like Aaron Rodgers actually in his post game thing talked about how their practice was extremely poor the week leading up to the Bills. He got asked a lot of questions about that early on, and he was just like, yeah, like we like to play, we like to practice outside. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. Like he just was so casual about it, and I'm telling you, I don't know if I can take another year of Mike Tomlin. Like, I don't know if I can take another year of this. And I think that, like, man, I'm starting to get my hopes up that, like, that this could be it. This could be, like, goodbye. We look to another coach, to new coordinators, and we just start fresh. Because, I think that like maybe Tomlin's ran out of hope and maybe that's what we're seeing. But my dad's family friend who I've talked about a few times, he sent a text to my dad and he sent it to me. And like this text I think is very indicating like just the tone and mood of Steelers Nation is like even the most diehard Steelers fans who are, all in on Mike Tomlin have lost hope. And like, and they've been how I've been at times. And I've mentioned this the past couple of years where it's like, there's not a lot of guys I want to root for on our team. Besides like Watt and Hayward, I can really give or take the rest. And like, yeah, like the friend was like, yeah, I don't want to watch these guys. Like, I'm not rooting for these guys. I don't care. That's what Tomlin has gotten the Steelers Nation too. Is just such apathy because it's just like it's the same thing over and over again. And these guys don't look like they want to give 100%, and they don't look like they're giving 100%, and it doesn't look like the coach is either. And it's just it's where we're at, and it's sad that we've gotten this far. That like I mean, you look at the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns. Guess what? They go in every game and they go in every year, even though they're horrible every year, and they love their teams. They're passionate about their teams. When Myles Garrett hit Mason Rudolph in the head with a helmet, every single Browns fan was ready to defend the guy no matter what. No Steelers fan cares. No Steelers fan wants to defend Cam Hayward right now. Nobody cares. Or Patrick Queen right now. It's like, like the Steelers are finally going to make a great play and they're going to be like, look. And all the Steelers fans are going to be like, oh, sorry, I was eating my chicken tenders. Or I was drinking my beer. Like, no one cares, and that's just so sad that we got fan bases that are number 1 and number 2 overall picks every year that care more and love their team more than we do right now. Yeah.
I'll make this mention, and I didn't want to make this mention because it's just more blackmail material, but you mentioned Myles Garrett. All this time, we've said, TJ Watt is better than Myles Garrett, and I think that's been true for 8 years. This year, that's not true. Myles Garrett is a mile ahead of TJ Watt to the point where he might break TJ Watt's record for sacks in a season. And on top of that, again, you think about just the positioning of where this team is. You think about how degraded Steelers Nation is. Do we have anything to talk about as far as like smack talk to anybody? I'm talking about anybody. Do we have any fuel to talk smack to Browns fans anymore? Like, is there anything that we can say to literally anybody right now and them actually take it off the shoulder? Like, I don't think we can. I don't think there's anything that we can talk about right now.
I think that I completely agree with you except for one thing, and I'll get to it, but I wanted to talk about the TJ Watt thing because, I completely agree. Myles Garrett, like, what hats off. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, we were fighting for TJ Watt the first 5 weeks, but we can't anymore. Like, he's just putting nothing on the field. Like, and like, Tony Romo talked about this a lot. Like they're getting 2 guys, they're getting a chip, they're getting one guy or a double team. Like he's getting a lot of coverage, which like yeah, that's fair. But like, where's Highsmith, right? If Watt's getting all the coverage, Highsmith should be getting there a lot, and he's not. Hayward should be getting there a lot, and he's not. Harmon was out, but you've got Benton and Black that should be getting there a lot, and they're not. And oh, by the way, it's just a dumb excuse. Watt was getting double teamed in 2020 and 2021, and guess what? He was still getting there. And also, I'm thinking about the defense that made us great was like the zone blitz, the fire blitz, where it's like you had no idea who was coming or something like that. How about you just send a corner on TJ Watt's side every time so the guy that's chipping Watt doesn't hit him, and Watt's one-on-one. And then you get a one-on-one every single time. Our coverages aren't really working either way. So why not just make that easy adjustment? But the one point that we have to defend as Steelers fans, and we can die on this hill forever, is Chris Boswell.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
He's the only thing that is shining right now in Pittsburgh. But other than that, you're absolutely right. It used to be TJ Watt and Cam Hayward too, but we can't even have them anymore.
I was walking out of the stadium, with plenty of time. There's not a whole lot of people walking out with me. And there's like the Steelers shop truck, just outside on the one road. And I'm walking by and I'm looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a Chris Boswell jersey. And then I look a little closer. Oh my gosh, it's only $130. And I sat there and I looked at that the entire way walking by the truck. And I'm like, I am not in the financial position to be able to buy that right now. But please, at some point, I pray that is the same price the next time I see one of those jerseys, because I'm buying it. That's the thing is, Chris Boswell is about the only thing we have, and you're absolutely right on that. But as far as fuel, like talking to other teams about them, We got nothing. There's nothing left. We can't talk smack anymore because people are just going to look at us and laugh because people are already doing that. People already are looking at us and laughing. There is nothing redeemable about this team right now.
No. And I mean, people talk about with Chuck Noll, like his dark years were in the 80s. They just weren't as good in this as as our amazing greatest decade dynasty that there ever was, Pittsburgh Steelers. But he was still winning playoff games like every 2 to 3 years. And so this is like our 80s, but it's worse. And it's only going to be worse if he's still here. Like if Mike Tomlin's still here, and it's just crazy that we've been holding on to him for this long. But kind of looking forward, looking to Baltimore, looking to kind of the rest of the season. I mean, I don't have any hope. I don't know if I'll predict a win the rest of the year. I don't know about you.
Well, ironically, I feel like if there's any chance for them to actually win another game, it's probably this one, like in a very weird way, because when AFC North matchups happen, it is what it is. You flip a coin and that's who wins. And oddly enough, like the Ravens are kind of in a similar spot. Like Lamar looks broken. Derrick Henry, while he did rattle off a big run on Thanksgiving, he's just not been the same this year. Their defense is better. It's not nearly as bad as it was early on, but at the same time, like the Ravens are weird too. They went on this big stretch to get back in first place in the division, and then they lose on Thanksgiving to the Bengals with Joe Burrow again. Hey, shout out Joe Burrow. He's helping us, even though we're not doing anything to help ourselves. But right now, it's like, okay, you look at it, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, 6-6, pretty much the exact same point differential. Their offenses aren't great, and their defenses are kind of worse. And now it's like, okay, this game might determine who makes it into the AFC North playoff picture. Because right now, the Baltimore Ravens have us by strength of common opponents, I think, is the tiebreaker that they have right now. And I think the only reason why is because they beat the Bears and we didn't. That's about the only thing that they have on us. But everything else is almost exactly the same. So you look, Baltimore, Miami, Detroit, Cleveland in Cleveland, and then to finish out against Baltimore in Pittsburgh, 3-2, you're 9-8. 2-3, you're 8-9. Mike Tomlin's first losing season. What else do they have to, say, oh, we got to keep him now? That has to be the final straw. Do you think they can win 3 more games the rest of this year?
When you mentioned the last 2 games we had, my instinct was 2. I was like, I think we could win 2 more. And I think that, this Baltimore game, I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be a rinky-dink game. It's going to be like, someone's going to walk out feeling like they lost but won. And I honestly think that there's an outside chance, and this is kind of my prediction, that you might not be 14-3 like you thought, but I think that the Bengals are going to win out, and they're going to take the division. I think that us and the Ravens, neither of us look like division winners, and so I think we're both going to fall off, and the Bengals are going to take the cake.
You want to know something crazy?
What?
The Bengals control their own destiny in the AFC North.
Man, because they play the Ravens one more time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen.
If they win out, then they will win the division.
That's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that our 4-1 loss to them could become so crucial to the division.
It could happen. Joe Burrow showed that he's still got it in him, and he's healthy again. And hey, give some credit to them. Their defense has played better. And if they finally get like passable defense and Joe Burrow's doing what he's doing, then who says they can't? Like I said, they control their own destiny. So why not them win out? And the Steelers and Ravens just completely fall apart, in the meantime. And heck, like I said, we have to play the Ravens twice. So if we just beat up on each other, then the Bengals are the ones to benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd much rather watch the Bengals than the Ravens in the playoffs. So, who knows what'll happen. But just as far as this week goes, what's your outlook and prediction?
I'm done predicting like how games are going to go. I'm done predicting flavors. I truly thought that the Steelers had a chance against the Bills this last week. Kind of like a 5% ish like thought in my mind. But that was like a very loud 5%. And I think by halftime of the game, I was thinking, okay, the 5% is kind of showing its head. And then we go back to the 95% and we lose 26-7. So right now against the Ravens, you kind of mentioned it earlier that this might be one of those Mike Tomlin specials where he finally snaps the skid and beats a team that he actually really does have to beat. But at the same time, didn't we say the same thing last week? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And I think that, like, the Bills game, I didn't think we were going to win. This game, I'm like, yeah, we probably have a 48% chance to win. But I still think it's going to be a loss. Like, yeah, I do think, like, there's a heavy chance we could win this game. But I think that, like, it being in Baltimore is fighting for their lives just like we are. And I think they have a better head on their shoulders than we do right now. And so I think that we're going to lose, and it'll kind of be a stamp of, like, after, like, I think if we lose this game, as a stamp of, like, well, this season, that's it. Like, we're not winning the division after this loss. But if we win, who knows? Kind of ruins this whole narrative that has been built up over this past week.
That's something that I want to kind of push back on, though, because even if they win, the narrative is no different. We talk about where the Steelers are at right now. But again, look at history. Just take 2 minutes to educate yourself. This is not new. Like, everything that we've talked about in this 55 minutes that we've talked is not new. This is all exactly what has happened in our lives as Steelers fans. Both of you and I, were like right around the 2000s when we were born. Like, early on in our lives, like, we didn't know much about Bill Cowher. We were alive for that, but we didn't know much about it. The only thing we've known is Mike Tomlin. And if you look at the history of the Steelers under Mike Tomlin, you went through it systematically year by year. This is not new. This is not something that, we should or not expect. If they beat the Ravens this week, I would say yes. This is almost saying absolutely that this is the exact same thing, because we've seen that too. As much as we've seen the losing, we've seen the, oh, but wait a minute, that type of win,
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that, because, like, if we win, it's like almost like I don't want to get my hopes up that people are going to be thinking the same thing, because, like what you said, it would be a pattern. Like, we've seen it. We've seen things look tired, and then Tomlin wins a game, and then everyone's like, "Oh, okay, everything's cool, we're fine." And I'm like, hopefully that doesn't happen again. It sounds like you don't think it will. I'm going to be hoping there with you that even if we win, it won't change this fact that Tomlin needs to go. But yeah, I think that this week, it's hard to have an outlook for this week because of what's happened, because of what's going on, and because of what these two teams are putting out on the field.
All right, my score prediction, very radical. I say the Steelers win this one 21-13.
Okay, interesting. I think we're going to lose 19-16.
That's so funny, because if I was under the impression that they were going to lose, that's the exact score that I was going to predict.
Wow, man, we're just keeping that trend of in sync this year.
We've been in sync. It's crazy. Like, and I think, again, it's just a product of the fact that we're talking about this stuff every week, and we're kind of like learning our brains, what's that called? Telekinesis, I guess,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. But that's where I am. And I have more of a feeling that we're going to win this week than if we're going to lose. And again, that's not indicative of what I saw on Sunday at Heinz Field, but I'm going with my gut. This is what my gut's telling me this week. If I had to put a percentage to it, I'm saying about a 57% chance we win this week.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I'm really interested to see what we put out on the field this week against Baltimore. It's the Ravens, you never want to lose to them. So we'll see. I'm really interested to see what'll happen. But yeah, who knows? Anything could happen.
That's the thing about the Steelers, and I think even the reporters have asked Tomlin about this, is like, why is your performance so fluctuating, week to week? Why do you have no consistency in your defense? You stop Jonathan Taylor, who's on pace to be the MVP, and then you can't stop Chase Brown, or you can't stop anybody. You can't stop James Cook from running a little outside run for 240 yards this week. That's just kind of how it is. The Steelers are at this rate unpredictable, and you just don't know what they're going to do week in and week out. And the problem is, especially now when we're 6-6, you just kind of have to take it. You don't really have much of a say.
Yeah, and I think that it's like what Colin Cowherd said a couple weeks ago when he was like, "I've figured out every single NFL team except the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have no idea what to expect." And that just comes from a head coach that doesn't have a vision and doesn't have a message. So, I mean, every week's a new week. Every week's a completely different week. So who knows?
You never know. One thing that you do know is that Boardman Black and Gold is sponsored by Zecca Enterprises, crafting furniture solutions in northwestern Pennsylvania. You can call 919-406-4679 to turn your furniture problems into furniture solutions. We've talked for an hour, and we've been very spirited, very passionate. this week after the Steelers got shellacked by the Buffalo Bills. But we play the Ravens, and the winner of this week will come out 7-6. Actually, you know what would be even funnier is if we tied. How great would that be?
I'd love it. I'd be totally on board with the tie. I mean, I feel like with the way these teams are playing, nothing would suit them more than a tie.
Can we predict a tie? Can we like collectively as a podcast predict a tie? I predicted a win. You predicted a loss. So like, can the two of us come together and just say, hey, they're going to tie this week?
I'm here for it. Let's do it. Let's say a tie. Let's say a 19-19 tie.
We're writing the rules. This is our podcast. These are our rules. This is what we're allowed to do this week. We, as Boardman Black and Gold, both Zane and David, are predicting a 19-19 tie this week. You heard it here first. It's Thursday morning. You're on your drive. It's probably snowy outside. 19-19 tie in Baltimore is what we're going to get this week. We would have it no other way, would we?
Absolutely not. We love it.
Well, we appreciate you listening to this episode of Boardman Black and Gold. Again, a very spirited episode. And if you have opinions on what's going on right now, please send us a DM on Instagram at Boardman and Gold. Let us know what you think of this entire situation. What do you think about Mike Tomlin? Is it time to move on? Give us your thoughts because we want to figure out what's going on because we don't know what's going on week to week. And with that, we will sign off for this week of Boardman Black and Gold. We'll be back to break down this Baltimore Ravens game next week on the Boardman Black and Gold podcast. Myself, Zane, joined with David DeSantis. Thanks so much for listening, and we're hoping to come back with a Here We Go Steelers win.